Sean, let's start. Let's start because this is what I want to talk about. Welcome to the Tactical Empire. Uh, we're here for a Thursday edition with Sean Ryder again, and we were just talking offline, and then things got juicy, and so we're just going to head right into it today, guys. I think we are talking about a saying of mine that is, you will only go as far as your leadership capabilities and your financial education will take you in life. Those will be your impediments at some point. And when you find yourself hitting off of a ceiling in a growth area, it's generally one of those two things in my experience. And so what we're doing is we're going to run with that topic. And Sean and I were discussing some things, and it resonated with me tremendously because I'm just a few years ahead of him on this journey of realization of leadership is what we're focused on, though, in this conversation. So, Sean, what were you saying, my man?
Yeah, so you guys are probably going to get a front row seat to a true mentorship call with Jeff Smith here. I was telling Jeff, like, something that's been on my mind recently as a 35-year-old husband and father, and shifting from, on the floor, service-based owner operator of a business to mentor to investor now. And Jeff, I've heard Jeff say this in tons of calls with our inner circle group. And as he said, he believes that financial education, and I also believe this, financial education is one of the greatest skills you can have, second to leadership skills. And that second part to that sentence that he always says, always got me thinking about how I am where I am. And it's because I viewed myself as a leader for a very long time as an athlete. And that was from a motivational leadership position because I wasn't the head coach of my teams, right? I was a player. So leadership in that realm was vocal and also lead by example. I believe I was one of the hardest working people on the team. I lived, breathed, and ate my sports. And so it was really hard for someone to say that I wasn't a leader. I was elected captain of my sports teams throughout high school. And that was really important to me. And then as I got older in the realm of business, I was very vocal and motivational. I was on the floor. I was leading by example. Same thing I did in my sports. But at some point, as my life evolved, right, got married, had kids, couldn't be on the floor in my business all day long, nor did I really want to be after a long time. And I had other opportunities, greater opportunities to provide income for my family. I feel like I did not take the next leadership step, possibly through ignorance, possibly because I didn't see myself going down that hole in that realm of just focusing on one single business as I got older and evolved. And I think back and it's like, the question I ask myself, so you guys can hear this because Jeff is going to mentor me here, is like, am I really a leader? Or did I just shift gears and realize that at this stage of my life, I'd rather just lead myself and lead the vision I have for myself and my family, and not lead, let's just say it simply, not lead employees. And now I'm in a position to where I create professional partnerships with people. And it, in my opinion, it's a lot easier for me to articulate the expectations, articulate the standards. Very easy to end a professional contract, property management, realtors, lenders, bankers. You just shift gears and go with someone else. So I don't know if it was a hedge and protection strategy for myself, or just that I didn't have the skill set or desire to be in a business as a leader.
Yeah. Oh man, this hits deep in me because of my experience. I actually started in real estate and then went into the gym business. So then I went from a more of contract style to the service-based business with employees and things like that, and then back to real estate later, right? And so the biggest thing is, like, the reason I talk about this all the time is because leadership is something that I think people take for granted when they're leading. It's kind of like the impact that you have on others when you don't realize others are watching. They're watching your lead regardless of whether you think they are or not. Like, so everybody's a leader. People sell themselves short in this area all the time. your actions are being watched by others all the time. People don't think they influence other people, but they do. Um, and so that's why it's important to hold yourself to a higher standard, in my opinion. But that's a conversation for another day. But the topic of leadership is really just about impact that you can have, and it refers to your family, how you are as a husband, you are as a father, how you are as leading your household, how you operate on a daily basis yourself. How do you lead yourself? Do you lead yourself well, or are you sloppy? Do you have habits that people can count on? Is your word something of integrity, or do people have to doubt you at every turn? I mean, all of that plays into leadership. But when you talk about the for me, with my experience in my failures in leadership, because I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying that you failed at these things. All of us have. If you've run a business and you've had employee turnover, um, most people, until they're more mature in their leadership abilities, don't understand that every time that happens, you should be looking straight in the mirror and determining, like, did you do everything you could in that situation? And then if you can check all the boxes on yourself as being successful in that leadership endeavor, then you go all the way back to the hiring process where you failed, because that was where the breakdown originally started, because that person maybe shouldn't have been hired in the first place. So ultimately, like, I'm a personal responsibility guy. It all comes back on you, and I'm very introspective about analyzing these things. And I used to run real hard, like you're talking about, with my leadership style. Like when I first started my gym business and brought on employees like that, like, I mean, I was a hammer and everything looked like a nail. And I thought that I could lead that way. And over time, what you learn from that type of leadership is that not everybody's responsive to it, right? And I think one of the biggest lessons that you can take away from this and understand is that, like, your kids don't respond to that, right? So you can't just lead that way with your kids. So then you look at your employees and you're like, maybe the issue is me, not them, right? So you're looking at your employees and you've turned over your third staff member in the last 3 months, and you're like, well, fuck, there's only one common denominator in this situation, and it's me. And so then you have to really understand, like, how much EQ you have. Like, are you willing to delve into the emotions of the situation, or are you very, like, just process and data driven, if you will? Because most people don't understand. People don't care until they know you care about them, right? And that's the hardest part of leadership, in my opinion, and leading employees. Because if they were driven the same way we're driven, they would be running the business themselves. To Sean's point about, like, he was the captain, not the coach. Like, in this situation, you're the coach, and, like, they're not the coach because they're looking for guidance from you. And if you don't have that ability to reach that level of, like, emotional realization and connection with them on, like, what you're doing and why, then you're failing on that part, and they're going to leave a wall up, because it's going to be a transactional relationship, because they're going to do exactly what they need to do to stay paid, and that's it. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah, I like that. And so I really like what you led there with, in regards to, I do think I'm a great leader for myself internally, and for my family. I think that last part there really struck home with me, because I with sports, it was a daily thing, right? We had to be led daily. We were working hard daily. There was a game coming up. There was a season coming up. And, when there were 50 to 100 people on a team, the people that were feeling good that day had to really pull and push everyone else. But then when it came into business, it was like, and again, these are just rhetorical questions and just me brain dumping. And I had a conversation with another mentor of mine and a therapist of mine that works with high level executives. And I asked, I was like, in the real world, is leadership as active as what people think? said, and that's why I led the question about my business, and you started with internal and with yourself. So let me articulate again. I think I'm great at leading myself. And then I started having this thought, like, I can't walk in my business every day like raw, lead, push, grow, hard. Like, we're not fucking selling cars here. There's not a new customer every single day. It's like same schedule, same work, same clientele. And it's like, and so it was like, how often do you need to have the conversation with an employee about, are you happy? Is everything okay? Are you making the money you want to make? How can I fucking help? And I'll pose a question or a challenge here. This personal responsibility, or this, let's just phrase it another way, the extreme ownership mentality. And again, I've read the books and listened to the podcasts on how to define that, but people can take that too far, right? Everything's on me. I'm owning everything fucked up because of me. But there are other human beings involved. And as a leader, what I struggle with, I can only go as far as what the other person on the other side of that relationship is telling me. And if they're telling me everything's hunky dory and they're happy and they're making, like, I'm not going to go in and break something if the other people are telling me that they're happy. And so that's really where I struggle when it comes from a leadership standpoint within business. And just so people know, like, when I pose that to a high level executive psychotherapist, she said, leadership, in her opinion, leadership is a lot more passive than what most people think externally, but it's a lot more active internally than what people assume. And like, that really resonated with me because I thought about it a lot inside of my head, but I also didn't think I should be out there holding the flag and leading the troops on the horse every single day. You know, it's like, we're not going to quote war. We're running a business. Like, here's our standards. Here's our SOP. Here's our service. Here's our clientele. Go do the work. And I know I'm not a micromanager. So, and I'm getting long-winded here, but I'm trying to just brain dumping and letting you take it where it goes. Like, I'm not a micromanager. And so once people know what their job is and they're executing on that job, I have a tendency to just put my hands up and be like, we're good until we're not.
Same. I think that comes from leading yourself well, because you know that you're handling your business. And like, that's where I was as a young leader always. And then I would abdicate responsibility instantly, thinking that everyone was as self-driven and as disciplined as I was with getting the job done, regardless of how the fuck I feel. And like, that's not everybody. We're not all wired the same. But ultimately, I think that your leadership ability is trained over time, because it's not something that's comfortable. I don't think leaders are naturally born. I think you have a patience with it, because like certain aspects of leadership with regards to running a team bore me, because like, I love being around fired up, energetic people, but that's not the reality of a day-to-day environment of running a team. Like, everybody comes in with their own pile of shit every day. Like, I've got all my stuff, they've got all their stuff. Like, am I motivated to shoulder all of their stuff every single day? And the answer is generally no, right? But what you have to understand is that when you reframe your leadership from the fact that you leading yourself well and then stopping there is a selfish act, then that allows me to think differently about my leadership. And so when I view it from a perspective of like, have I set everyone else up for success? Have I created a culture of success? Have I created a culture of high energy? And the answer is generally no, because I don't enjoy doing that on a regular cadence. Then it clicks in my little brain. I'm like, oh, it's just another habitual thing that I need to put in my order of operations, because then you can just check the box each day that you are doing X, Y, and Z. Now, when I say check the box, don't misinterpret that. Like, if you're actually having a meaningful, attentive conversation that's in an intentional manner, like that is something that I'm paying attention and I'm engaged in. But like, that's also something that you can track, and it's a quantitative data point that you can see over time will have an ROI. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And so where maybe there are some business owners out there that might be in the same position where I was a few years ago and still a little am, but I just handle it a lot better now just with the team that I have in some of my businesses. Like and again, maybe the people listening, for the person out there that has a business, that has a team, they were leading, and maybe they went and started focusing on other ways. And for this in particular, let's say build wealth for themselves and their family, which may be tied back to the selfish act comment that you made. It's like they have to weigh, what if you're at a crossroads and you have to weigh the opportunity cost of the amount, and this is where I was, Jeff, the amount of fucking work it might take to develop that culture to last as long as possible. I've seen plenty of businesses that are doing well every 90 days, 180 days. But to keep that going and keep that culture going with a handful of people, when you may have other opportunities for greater financial reward and individual self-actualization reward and passion.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile that? And that, my man, was a big crossroads that I've been at and have still been processing and working through for 2 to 3 years now. I think I'm in a really good spot, but it's still something that I actually, quote, for lack of a better term, feel bad about. It's almost like, I don't want to say I'm leaving people behind in some of these other endeavors, but like, I only have so much time in a day, man. And I have huge priorities, myself, my family, my kids, what we're building. And it's like, you said, check the box. And as long as I'm doing what I'm doing daily, or maybe that's weekly, or maybe that's monthly, right? It's not, maybe it doesn't take that much, but like, culture is a huge fucking thing, dude.
Yeah.
That takes work and time, man. That takes a lot of, the cook has to be in the kitchen marinating meat for that one.
Yeah. You're a gardener, and you've regularly got to garden and feed and water your plants, right? And that's where the really tough internal questions have to come in, because you're asking a different question besides, are you a good leader at that point? Because you're really asking a question of, has my life shifted to the point where I'm out of this season potentially? And then if the answer is yes, because it was yes for me in my gym 3 years before I got out of my gym, and the answer was yes, but then I did the selfish thing and stayed involved in it. And so from that standpoint, you have to be truthfully, brutally honest with yourself. Like, okay, I'm fucking done with this. Okay, but I'm kind of still dabbling in it, or there's these benefits. I could collect these checks off of it. Like, do I just let it sit and burn itself out, or like, is it good enough? And you have to understand that, like, that's probably not the right answer, because you don't understand the negative energy and vibrations that are associated with holding on to that, because of the egotistical reasons that you're hanging on to it. And so, like, that's part of the thing that has been the best thing about doing annual planning with my wife, is that we get totally fucking deep in the weeds on this type of shit. Like, does that fit in our life anymore? Yes, I like it. Why? For what reasons? Well, it gives me this amount of money. I like being looked at as the owner. I like the self adulation, or whatever it's called, of people looking at me like the people, like I am the, whatever it's called, the hero at the business or whatever, right? And like, okay, and then you break that down to the, why are those things speaking to me with regards to this? And so, I mean, these things just pass, and we usually hold on to them too long. And we hold on to them because we did so much blood, sweat, and tears to build them a certain way. It's kind of the same thing with, okay, let me use another analogy. You have an employee that is operating at 50%, and you won't let them go. You won't fire them. And the reason is because they do something that you don't want to do. So they come in really early and you don't want to open up anymore, or they need to they need the money from your perception that they need to continue to work on, and you've counseled them and counseled them and counseled them. In my experience and my personal belief is that you are hurting that person and holding them back by keeping them one more day within your team. and facility, because they are meant for something else, and it's crystal clear based on their activities that something else needs to happen in their life, whether that's a new opportunity or whether that's a wake up call from being fucking fired. Like, you are being selfish by not taking that action because you're being lazy, or because you're being scared, or some other underlying emotion, because you don't want to coach or you don't want to open the 5 a.m. business, right? So, like, it's the same type of thing on a macro scale when it comes to your business. Like, has our life pivoted? Like, the boat has turned. It's happened slowly over a 3-year period, so we've not really noticed the acute turning of the boat, but it's turned now, and I'm facing a different direction. And now my view is completely different. But I've still got these emotions attached to why I'm doing this. And is the why really selfish driven, or is it selfless? I guess is part of the questions you should ask yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. It's something I've definitely dove deep into. So it's interesting. Again, just so the listeners can kind of hear what mentoring sounds like. It's like, in my context of my life, me and my wife have had maybe not as deep of conversations as we need to going into this year. We will try and dive a little bit deeper. We certainly have emotions tied to our gym business. We have great people in place. The team members are fantastic. They have verbalized that they enjoy what they're doing. And so it's interesting when you view it as can I just be a shareholder of a single owner LLC, S corp business, service-based business? And I guess as you talk there, as a mentee in this position, it's like, what I hear is, yes, I can be a shareholder, but it's not going to work if I haven't replaced the leadership component of that business. And so the void, because you're like, people are going to look for that person. It's like, well, if I'm not that person yet, I haven't put someone in that place with that. I hate titles. I hate titles. So I'm not just going to call him a leader. I'm not just going to call him a GM. I'm not just going to call him a head coach. It's like, how can I empower a person to be that person? And maybe that comes down to letting go of the last little bit and these are the 5% of things that I'm still involved in and decisions I can make. But I think the people listening can maybe relate to a few of those things. Is there anything else that you want to throw out there from a leadership? Yeah, go ahead.
Sure, man. Yeah, I think that people struggle with getting to the actual, because this is a deep internal thing, right? You've got to admit some things about yourself and your personalities and the emotions that you're having. Most of us are control freaks. That's why we own businesses, because we want to fucking be in control. I don't want a boss. I don't want to answer to anybody. I don't want you telling me what to do. Sink or swim, lose or win, it's fucking my call. And like, that's the personality most of us have. And so, like, this is a hard, it's a humbling, like, conversation to have with yourself and understand, right? And then but you have to go, this is like where you go 7 layers deep on the why. Like, why because it gives me $3,000 a month. Why? Like, because I like working out with my family on Saturdays. Why? Like, you have to go down there and really understand it. But what I was going to say is that people get hung up on the resolution of the situation. Like, so you will stop yourself from having that 7 layers conversation because you're like, well, what are my options? To sell it or close it? And like, you'll get stuck on that front end conversation and never go to the depth necessary. And so, like, there's a million ways to exit this thing. And not all of them are real gross or muddy or like ugly at all. And like, there's a lot of ways you can do equity earnouts. Like, I've got a creative brain. I can write down 50 ways for you to get out of there. And so, like, but people get stuck on the how first. This is just like goal setting in the opposite direction, right? Like, you want $50 million of real estate. They get stuck on buying the first fucking house. They're like, I can't even understand how I get to 50 million. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Like, if you want to unpack this gym and make it a blessing to someone else, like, that's what you have to decide on. Like, I want to bless my staff with this beautiful business that we've built. The how fucking doesn't matter. We can figure out the how. Like, what do you want it to look like? That's what has to happen. The how doesn't matter. There's a million hows, how to answer that.
Yeah.
And
Wait,
people,
go ahead,
so I don't want, just people get hung up on that. They never get to like what they want truly, because they're stuck on like, well, that'll never fucking happen.
Right.
Well, I don't, because they haven't thought of that idea, or no one's told them about it yet. That's it. So
yeah, and I think from my side of things, from a mentor's perspective, I think a lot of people get hung up on the sunk cost fallacy as well. Well, I've put all this time in, I just can't walk away from it. I've seen that. And the dreaded, which is not a problem for me, what are other people going to think?
Yeah.
I went from being a gym owner to not. What are other people going to think? So, but guys, this has been a fantastic episode on what it sounds like to get mentored. None of that was staged. That was a genuine conversation, and you can maybe tell that Jeff and I have not talked about some of my business endeavors in a one-on-one setting. But look at how much impact Jeff just had on me in 25 minutes. That's what it feels like when you're working with someone that has gone through what you're going through, who has skin in the game. Those are the type of people that I look for and that I listen to. I'm not looking for someone on Instagram that has a 30-second clip to get me through today. I'm trying to get in works with someone, to invest in someone, to hear my story, my life, my goals, and genuinely ask them, how can I get there? And Jeff has tons of experience. And obviously I've used him for over 4 years now as my mentor. So Jeff, I appreciate your insight today. You want to leave anything for the people?
Yeah, man. The thing I love about you is that you're at this part of your journey where you're very introspective and you're thoughtful, and you're coachable. And like, that is what will lead you to exponential success that's coming over the next 5 years, because most people can't get to that point. And I think I was probably your age, or maybe somewhere in my 30s, when I was able to kind of humble myself and have that level of humility where, like, I'm just quiet more than I'm talking. It sounds like I run my mouth all the time, because I do sometimes, but like, I listen a ton more than I talk at this point. And I really am able to see a lot of different perspectives through doing that. And it really has changed the way that I make my decisions, that I lead people, and things like that. And so, like, your strongest trait that you've developed over the last 5 years is your ability to be humble and be coachable and listen and process. And so, like, keep on doing what you're doing, man. It's good stuff. Like,
well, I appreciate that. And Jeff does a really good job at dangling that 5-year carrot in front of my face. That's pretty much what he said 4 or 5 years ago. He's like, "Oh, you're way ahead of where I was when I was your age." And what he said is really played out well. So I look forward to seeing where I'm at 5 years from now. But Jeff, I appreciate your time today.
Absolutely, brother. We'll do it again next week.
All right.